Yes, married mothers really are happier than unmarried and childless women. Surprisingly. Yeah, I know. There was an article that came out recently. You probably saw the data on this, Aiden, because data is your field. That said that unmarried and childless women are more happy.
I hope you die as well, Uzalu. Thank you.
Well, blue as well, guys.
But dies right here, Aiden. Married mothers completely satisfied 38%. Childless women completely satisfied 12%.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I'm sure.
Now I want to point something else about this. I want to point something out about this. It's very important. These are self-selective surveys. So these are women who are admitting that they're satisfied.
You were about to say, I think what I said what I said before the stream is that it is self-report. So it's probably even more intensive than this. And satisfaction is not a measure of like relative quality between people. Every person has roughly the same level of satisfaction because it's just a filter for how well they're doing right now. It's a reward for doing something good in the immediate. But even then, you see this difference. Yeah.
If it's a good study, then you would use a different scale. So we have two different scales. We have a hedonic scale and a eudaimonic scale. That's okay. We have a hedonic scale and a eudaimonic scale. If they were, I have not looked at the study, but if they were being correct, they would use the eudaimonic scale. They use the life satisfaction. Actually, no, I can already see this. They use the life satisfaction scale, which sucks. The life satisfaction scale is a fucking piece of shit. It's a piece of garbage scale. It sucks. Sorry, I know a whole lot about this.
That's all right.
What you should be testing is eudaimonia versus hedonia. So hedonia is pleasure. Does this make me feel good in the moment? To make me feel good. That's pleasure. It's pure pleasure. That's hedonia, hedonic, right? Eudaimonia is meaningfulness. It also is a pleasure feeling, but it is not pleasure in the way that hedonia is, in that eudaimonia is, look, taking care of your child while they're crying. You have a baby who's crying, and you're like, oh my God, I just want this baby to stop crying. I want the baby to stop crying. And then they stop crying and they smile at you. The feeling that you get from that, that's hedonic. Or you mean not hedonic, that's eudaimonic. That's eudaimonic. That is a feeling of meaningfulness that you cannot get from pure pleasure. If you just you can inject cocaine into your blood system and you're going to feel a whole bunch of hedonic pleasure. But that is not. Eudaimonia is a meaningfulness that is way beyond that. It's a pleasure that excels and extends beyond that.
I remember seeing Troons talk about like how they experienced this when they got the baby to latch onto their male nipples and shit like that. And it's like, this is not what this is.
Oh, you ruined it. That was a nice moment.
No, that's being weird. Yeah, I was trying.
Sorry, I need to bring us back down to.
That was almost certainly actually just hedonistic pleasure from a sexual fetish. But what Aiden's talking about is as meaningfulness.
That's motherhood.
If there's any way to measure that, Aiden, that's pretty great, because I think meaningfulness is something that everyone should be pursuing. I suspect that the distinction is good. I suspect the distinction is that hedonistic pleasure is short-term focused and eudaimonic, as you said, is long-term focused. If you can get a baby to calm down and smile at you, not only does it mean that the baby is healthy, that you have a sort of a connection emotionally with the baby, but that the baby is likely to develop and continue to be healthy, somewhat likely. Yeah. It means that you have a stable status, you have an equilibrium of a lack of just like currently occurring problems. You're safe in terms of your life structure, and that, I think, that's probably meaningful. And you're doing something that you're good at, something that you're supposed to be doing, essentially. Genes are expressing themselves well.
Eudaimonia can be perceived. It's not just in childbearing. It can be perceived in all kinds of ways. It's about meaningfulness. It's not something that is fun. For example. Yeah, sure. It's not something that's necessarily fun. It is something that is meaningful, and it is still pleasurable to the same part of the brain that activates the amygdala. That's pleasurable. You still get a pleasurable sensation activation in that part of the brain, but it is not in the same way that the hedonic instantaneous. Yeah. Because you're also usually experiencing some pain in eudaimonic joy, I should say.
Well, they talk about that as well when you hear the baby cry, right? Like the sound of a crying baby to a woman is apparently amplified compared to what a man would hear.
If a baby crying will make a woman in the vicinity lactate. If she's and
also they're able to pinpoint their own child, and like the child can find them as well among a sea of people just by it's all connected.
We're built this way. This is all evolutionary. Obviously, it is.
Well, that's why the whole like idea of like faggots taking the children from the mother and raising them as themselves is such a horrendous thing to do.
Skin-to-skin contact produces oxytocinergic response, which is the bonding hormone. It is also the bonding hormone
saying that word.
Oxytocinergic? Yeah, I do.
She took the time to learn how to say that word, so god damn it, she's going to use it.
Of course I am. Oxytocinergic.
I just like saying faggot.
Meaning it produces oxytocin, which is that oxytocin is the bonding hormone that is both in romantic relationships, and most importantly, the most production of oxytocin that is ever produced in any human's body, statistically, is in a woman's body after she has given birth. That is a bonding hormone that is meant to make her love the baby. Right.
I expect men get that a lot at that same moment as well.
They
because
do.
Men are unique among humans for being actually pretty good at raising children.
The actually funny thing about that, well, not funny, actually, the really tragic thing, I should say, is that because the woman's body overproduces oxytocin after birth, that's why a lot of women kill their kids, because they get so emotional, they get crazy.
It's that cute violence response, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like they get so emotional, they go nuts and kill the baby.
Like in a lot of animals, it's like if you look at hamsters, a slight gust of wind makes them eat their kids. You know,
we think hamsters and a lot of rodents eat their babies because they think there's something wrong with them, but there's actually not even good evidence for that.
Is another word,
there's not good evidence for that even, but that's why they do it. I would say that because we know, by the way, how we discovered oxytocin and vasopressin, or more particularly, which is the male version of oxytocin, which is the male bonding hormone, vasopressin. We discovered that in rats and voles before we discovered it in humans. We think that might be why the hamsters eat their babies, is because they go fucking insane, which would kind of it's the same reason why some women just kill their kids. Like they go nuts and just kill their kids. It's because their brains are so overwhelmed with this insane hormone.
Yeah.
Almost all child murders are done by women.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's an evolutionary response. Like we're supposed to have that. We developed this hormone to women will want to take care of a screaming, shitting, annoying thing, right? That's why we have the hormone to do that. But if there's too much of it, it can go the opposite direction, where it just makes you go so insane that you.
It's why there's a lot of cases where there's women that really want to be mothers.
Women
become
kill.
A mother.
Almost all child murders done by women. Men, these are rookie numbers that step up our game. Come on, we're going to beat the women.
Oh, no.
No, but you see it as well with women that like desperately want to be mothers, right? And then they become a mother and they experience like massive depression. There's a lot of those kind of things that happen as well.
Maybe they don't get as much of a satisfaction from it in any sense of the satisfaction, like hedonistic or long term, if there's no father involved, and if they don't have a stable household, or if it's not everything they expected it to be, overhyped as well. You could be depressed by that.
It's not even if there is a father involved or not. It's like I said, it's oxytocinergic in that. Sorry if I keep using that word. It's a big word. It is a big word. But it's oftentimes an overload. It overloads women's brains because we have tiny little women brains and we can't handle so much shit. And sincerely, like I'm being honest, we can't handle that much fucking overload cognitively. So we go in terms of the amount of this chemical that's being pumped through our own bodies when a woman has given birth. Yeah, that's why they go nuts sometimes and just go into the bedroom and kill their fucking kids, which for no comprehensible reason, because it happens all the time. I mean, statistically, it happens way more than men do. Men don't go into the bedroom and murder an infant the way that women do.
It's seen throughout a lot of animals as well, like that. It is a thing that is done. For what exactly reason, we're not, as you say, entirely sure, but it definitely is linked to a lot of the hormones, either imbalances or
that's why
whatever is going on there.
That's what I think is probably why women kill they kill kids and their own children in the crib. It's because they're overwhelmed with this bonding hormone that actually makes them so because is it actually intended to make women more emotive, to make them more emotional, and then it's so emotional that they go nuts. That's the thing that makes the most sense to me. It's probably not the case. No, let's be clear. There's women who just kill their kids if they're psychopaths.
It is, yeah. It is weird that too much of the bonding chemical would lead to an overload that ends up with them killing the kids. You'd think that evolution would not select for that. And you'd think that it'd be difficult for that to be leftover noise in evolution because it's women killing their children. That's pretty close to the core of the evolutionary process. However, I would like to proceed with the assumption, without knowing what the answer is, that evolution did select for that. I don't know why.
Yeah, I was going to say there's
I wonder if there's a reason.
some reason.
Yeah,
because men have been around.
If there's a massive amount of women that like more and more start killing their kids, there's obviously some environmental factor that is causing that. Whether that's like actually done intentionally, something in the water, whatever they're given, pumped into them. Like there can be all sorts of horrendous things in this day and age that can cause more of these things. The more we learn too, the more that these kind of like biological weapons can be weaponized against the whole population. And we're in an age where they're desperately talking about how they're trying to reduce the population at any cost. And I feel like it's just interesting that we're having more and more women with fertility issues, more and more women with mental health issues, more and more women killing their kids when they finally actually do conceive. These are all things I don't think should be ignored and just be thrown around as coincidences.
Absolutely. As to why the explication evolutionarily, Uzalu, I think it's probably because historically, because you asked a good question, why would that happen? I think because historically women have had, because the human species is K-selected, right? We're not R-selected, we're K-selected, is that there have always been males there to stop the women from doing this stuff. Because why would the women why would this drive that also causes us to love and want to care for children also cause us to kill them? Because it is the same chemical drive. The same chemical is driving these two completely disparate drives. And that's because I think that if there's no male there, probably the reason why is the woman is going, I cannot care for it, and therefore I need to kill it. That's my guess.
There's a lot of push too, as well, about how babies are just like a clump of cells and not worths, or even.
Oh, I'm talking about an infant, but you're right there too.
No, but I do think there is a factor involved with like a lot of the I would say grooming in society and in the education system of like what to feel for a child and how little they matter in comparison to the woman's life and stuff like that, which goes against all of the functions of what a woman should be feeling.
The shit I read about that. Yeah, the shit I read about that, it's flabbergasting to me, the lack of concern for children that we apparently have culturally.
Somebody brought up a good point too. Community is a massive issue too, because when a woman would be overwhelmed, you would usually be around other women, sometimes going through pregnancy as well.
Why? That's what I'm thinking. Link up, by the way.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and having mothers, grandmothers, friends, like other family members to step in when they're overwhelmed and to take a break. And if there's none of that and they're just constantly with the child, then...
Yes. Here's what I'm thinking, all right? The theory that if a man isn't there, it's a deselector, okay, and the woman goes in, tries to kill the baby, the man stops her. That to me doesn't sound quite right, because the man being at home isn't where he's supposed to be evolutionarily. He's supposed to be somewhere else. Right. And that seems a bit too random.
See, other women.
And if the man stops the woman from murdering the kid because of some emotional imbalance, that's going to really fuck up the relationship of what could be a perfectly healthy situation. So my thinking is that it's not supposed to happen in the first place. You only get that oxygenergic overload or whatever because
oxygenergic.
Yes, if you have had. If you get into the wrong situation, you're not supposed to get there in the first place. And so that along the lines of what you guys were thinking, community might be the reason for that. Now, how would that filter? Not directly, but indirectly. If being with a child is such a rare and an unusual and novel thing for a woman, then she's probably among the last of her tribe. And so it's not worth trying to raise this child that's not going to be supported. It's just going to be too much suffering. But if it's a common occurrence, i.e. if she has a tribe with plenty of women having plenty of new children, then the child can not only be raised among that community, but raised well and cared for. But if she's on her own and it's a really rare and weird thing, then she's overload of chemicals and it wipes out that tribe. Deselector, because that wasn't going to work. The baby was not going to have enough community influences. And in the same way as psychopathy is a more of a collective scale deselection mechanism, and that suicide is a male individual level deselection mechanism, I suspect that the oxytocin overload cute aggression thing is an individual level female deselection.
I think that's completely an accurate and correct assessment. Is that I don't know this. I don't have any data on this for once. But I think that if you have a child that is born into a family where it's not just a woman in isolate, but she's got a mother and a mother-in-law and a grandmother-in-law and a whole family system and unit that's there to help take care of the child, I don't know, and I honestly don't know if then that same activation of like, well, I'm just going insane now, I'm going to kill the baby, because I don't know how much that happens. It has happened, by the way. I've seen it. I watch true crime shit, so I've seen it happen. But I think it depends on the relationship and the involvement of the parents. Now, it might happen no matter what. You can't avoid it in all cases, unfortunately, because some women will just go nuts because this is a biological response that you can't really calculate for. However, I think the reason why, as you said, why do women have this chemical response to it? Because it seems to not be sensical, right? Why would women have this chemical response if it causes them to fucking murder their own children? Well, I think it's because, as you say, it's this like extreme protective response that gets a little bit twisted in the brain sometimes, and maybe because they're thinking like, oh no, I don't have a tribe to help protect my child, so it's better that they die in infancy than have to struggle through this life, which is horrific. But from an evolution, you have to always think about things from evolutionary psychology.
It's not exactly that what they're thinking, but it's something that is like inherent to them, like built in almost, and it will only show itself under specific circumstances.
Evolutionary psychology is very brutal. If you start
seeing this more and more in society, then there's definitely something that really needs to be addressed.
So you asked why, if the woman doesn't want the child in the chemical overload, why is it kill the baby and not abandon the baby? I have a thought on this.
Well, sometimes there is abandonment, but they
Di
choose.
has a thought too. Yeah, sometimes it is abandonment, but
I can tell you why as well.
I'm kidding. My point would be that it's genetic deselection. Get rid of the genes from the group that aren't working. And if the woman kills the baby, any tribe that she still happens to be in is likely to get rid of her, is to exile her for that. So it's an entire genetic line deselection. Abandoning the baby might mean that someone else finds it and then those genes propagate, whereas they're genes from a tribe that failed.
Right.
Let's say that the women would be leaving babies on doorsteps or at churches all the time and just fucking off.
We have to go back further than that.
That was more of a raw resources issue, but yeah.
We have to go back further than that time. We have to go back into Africa, right? Back into pure tribal.
Africa.
I know, you got to think tribal thought, right? So your tribe has been conquered by another tribe. You're a woman. You want to be able to have some power, at least just live within the new tribe. Would you not want to mate with one of the members of the new tribe who's taken over yours?
To survive, you would
kill your existing baby in order to be able to get rid of that line and to prove your loyalty to the new tribe, or not even to prove your loyalty, but like to just be like
to assimilate.
To assimilate. I think that's a lot of what it is too. And that's what people always. I find this very funny. Is that the leftoid people who always argue with me on shit like this on Twitter? It's like, you know that all of this comes down to science. It all comes down to evolution. And then they, again, think that evolution stops at the neck. No, you have to think about, why do people do this stuff? It's because we're all monkeys, okay? Like, that's why. At the end of the day, like, I know that we are very evolved monkeys, but we're still monkeys. And you still have to, like, look at, why would we do this shit?